Much contacts with the members of the United Nations, and certainly we will try our best to have something done by the United Nations to stop this genocide against the Libyan people.
The Arab League will hold an emergency meeting in Egypt to discuss the country. Our reporter Shireen Tadros is live for us in the capital, Cairo. The Arab League always accused of being unable to make a decision or even to act on their decisions. Shireen, will it be any different this time round?
Well, we heard very strong statements coming from the Secretary General, Amr Moussa, late on Monday night. A very emotional statement really coming from him, saying that he really feels for the people of Libya and is asking for the bloodshed to stop. And he did indicate that when it comes to the demand for change that is coming from the Arab people and beyond, that people or members of the Arab League are on board with that. But of course, it is very difficult for members of the Arab League. Don't forget that many of those representatives are facing either uprisings or the beginnings of uprisings in their own countries, countries like Yemen, Algeria, Bahrain, Morocco. So it will be an awkward statement for them to make, but certainly I think when it comes to talking about the brutality with which the Libyan government is reportedly using against its own people, that we expect there won't be much disagreement on, and there will be some kind of unanimous statement coming out of the Arab League sometime today.
How concerned is Egypt as a nation? Because we're getting news and we've seen pictures of Italians, Bangladeshis, South Korean expats who work in Libya being affected. Egypt must be worried too. It has expats in the country.
It does, about 1 million of them. It's one of the largest expat communities in Libya. So the Egyptian military have said that they are doing everything possible to try and evacuate Egyptians from the country now. And we understand that not all the Egyptians want to leave, but many of them, of course, do. So what the Egyptian military is trying to do is coordinate for planes to land in Benghazi and Tripoli to try and evacuate their nationals. We haven't got word whether they've managed to be successful in that request. So in the meantime, the Egyptians are trying to take out their nationals via land and also take out some of the Turkish nationals too. About 25,000 Turks live in Libya and are in Libya right now, and we understand that the Turkish authorities have also asked for the Egyptians to help in their evacuation. So about 100 buses as of last night, Monday night, were on their way from various parts of the country in Libya to the Libyan-Egyptian border, and the military have in fact set up these camps, these tents, to provide medical aid for those who arrive at the Saloum crossing. It's going to be a very long day, a very difficult day, of course, for them once they get out. And we also understand from the Egyptian military that released a statement on the internet last night that on the Egyptian-Libyan border is no longer Libyan troops, but in fact people's committees. We don't know if those people's committees are in fact loyal to Muammar Gaddafi or not, but that seems to be a development that the military was telling us as of last night.
Well, Shireen, thank you very much for bringing us up to speed. And of course, we'll be following events from Cairo throughout the day as well. Well, expatriates from Libya, as Shireen alluded to, have also been leaving the country in their droves. The Italians are no exception. Italy says it's to begin airlifting its citizens out of the country on Tuesday, but many Italians aren't waiting for rescue. Flights arriving in Rome on Monday were packed with people fleeing the violence. Emeke Emulu has more.
Italian expatriates return home, relatives relieved they've escaped the worst. The media, however, want to know their stories, hoping for some clarity on events in Libya. All they get is an even more confusing picture.
Tripoli at the moment, at least, is not in the hands of the army. Most soldiers, anyway, are in favour of Gaddafi. At least that's what people say. Yet it is a very unpredictable situation.
Life carries on normally, except some people who say, "Long live Gaddafi," and others who say, "Down with Gaddafi." After dark, you have more people coming out who invoke the uprising. But from what I could see, the stories of mercenaries chopping hands and so on are nothing but urban legends.
We heard shootings and lots of confusion in town. Also, we heard that 5,000 people were on their way to Tripoli from Benghazi. But there is no official news because there is no press. So who knows? Anyway, the little that is known doesn't look good at all.
And this Serbian citizen who works in Libya says on the way to the airport there were civilians with guns on every corner. But unlike those coming from Tripoli, the Turkish expats who left the city of Benghazi hours earlier were visibly shaken.
Our construction site was ransacked by local people on Saturday night at about 3:15 in the morning. We were all ready for a situation like this. Everybody was sleeping in their daytime clothes.
A short while later, men, women and children on the Mercy flight are back on home soil. But many more remain in Benghazi. One witness has told journalists that thousands of Turks are taking refuge in a football stadium, waiting to be evacuated. Emiko Molu, AlJazeera.
Let's just give you an idea of how the cracks are showing in the Gaddafi government. Libya's Justice Minister, Mustafa Abdul-Jalil, has already quit over the use of deadly force against protesters. A number of diplomats have also resigned, including ambassadors to the Arab League and India. And reports just in that the Libyan ambassador in Malaysia has sided with the Libyan people, and 4 Libyan officials in China have also quit. 2 senior Libyan Air Force officers have defected to Malta after reportedly being ordered to bomb protesters. Well, Youssef Bouandal joins me now here in Doha. He's a professor of international affairs at Qatar University. That list of diplomatic personnel pulling away from the regime is a damaging one, certainly for Colonel Gaddafi at the moment.
Indeed, and I believe that the list will be growing by the day. Tomorrow, for instance, we'll probably see more people defecting, if I can use this word, still damaging the Libyan government. Obviously, the expats leaving the country is also a very good indication that the Gaddafi regime is losing grip on the country.
How concerned would you be about what comes out of the Arab League meeting that we've been discussing with Shireen in Cairo today, that the Arab League are in a very difficult position? Some of those member nations have uprisings themselves. Some of them are even led by, some might describe as dictators or single monarchies.
I think that the best that would come out of this summit would be some kind of condemnation, maybe timid condemnation, and maybe some kind of advice to Gaddafi to stop the bloodshed and maybe find a way out of the situation. But like you rightly said, and your correspondent from Cairo said, I think most of the Arab leaders have to deal with what is going on in their own countries. Yemen, for instance, Iraq, Bahrain to a certain extent, Morocco, Algeria, and also Jordan. They're facing some kind of demands for more political liberalization.
If we're looking then at the UN taking the lead, which most of the international community would assume, what sort of moves would you like, or not so much would you like to see come out of that closed-door meeting? What do you expect will be said there?
Well, I think that there will be some very strong condemnations, true, but I think that the members in the Security Council have to balance their actions against their interests. Obviously, Gaddafi over the last few years has become friends with most Western governments, very good friends with Berlusconi, with Tony Blair, and with the US. So it will be very, very hard to predict what they're doing, but the bottom line is something needs to be done to stop the bloodshed.
But of course,